Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining today from the Fitchburg Police Department, we have Captain Edward Harwick here with me, taking the time out. Obviously, a tragedy unfolded yesterday at Abundant Life Christian School. Certainly I appreciate your time coming in today. I asked if Ned would come in and have a conversation today. A lot of things going on here, a lot of moving parts, a lot of questions for parents. So Ned, I know you guys are super busy, but we kind of want to shed some light on kind of things that are happening, maybe some understanding from the department here and how it relates in Fitchburg, and then hopefully some ideas too on resources out there. One thing I think I've heard repeatedly from me asking questions is just, and hearing Chief from Madison is sharing those resources and seeing actually some of those resources in the room talking. So we'll get to all that here first. But from your perspective yesterday, how does Fitchburg Police look at a situation like yesterday, or any day? Because unfortunately, we're hearing about this all the time.
Yeah, you hit it right there in the fact that this is unfortunately an all too common occurrence across our country. And yesterday, it certainly hits a lot closer to home. And I can tell you that there are a number of us in the police department yesterday, as we are Monday through Friday in the office, taking care of administrative tasks, and we hear the alert tones go out and hear this information broadcast about this incident. And so we are listening to it in real time as it's unfolding, and knowing the responders that are going into that building and the situation that they're encountering. And so as that's happening, we are then reaching out to our school contacts in our community to let them know what's going on, and to make it clear that we had no information that there were any threats or anything to our schools, and recognizing that we're a unique community, that we don't have our own school district. So we work with the Oregon School District, we work with the Verona School District, we work with the Eagle School, a private school in our community, and then Leopold Elementary is not in Fitchburg, but it's right on our border, and we would likely be a responder there. So we maintain regular contact with all those schools. We reached out to them to make sure that they were aware, and we developed a plan to have extra officers deployed to those schools just to offer a layer of reassurance.
I'm glad you brought up the partnership, because it goes into my next question. Partnerships, you see, if you watch the news, you see multiple agencies responding to these things, but the preparation in this is happening all the time. Again, Chief Barnes mentioned this yesterday multiple times. They were actually training yesterday. His group was actually training up the street. There's preparation in this. There's a plan for this. It's sad to say that there's a plan for this, but also reassure there's plans for this. Maybe a little bit, shed light a little bit on that and what that looks like.
So we are very fortunate in Dane County to have just an amazing network of partners that would respond to a situation like this, like they did yesterday. And that goes from police officers and paramedics that are out in the field that may be first into the building, to an excellent trauma center at UW Hospital, and then everywhere in between, where we have people that are providing mental health support. We have federal law enforcement partners that come in. Literally anything that you can imagine, there are resources that are there to help support both the initial response, the reunification process, and then realistically the bigger impact is going to be on the entire Madison community, and certainly the school community there. The mental health impacts, the resiliency, the things that come up after this, the fear that this may spark when other people are going to school now. And so we are part of this fantastic network, and it is our job as a law enforcement organization, a police department, to be concerned about this. We don't want the community to be overly concerned about these types of incidents. Unfortunately, they're all too common, but we on a regular basis are either training, coordinating, whether that's with school districts, whether it's other law enforcement agencies, conducting tabletop exercises, but this is at the forefront of our minds on a regular basis.
And then as far as, you partner with all the schools, so parents might be asking themselves today, like, what is the school doing to keep my kids safe? And I know, because I'm lucky enough to be able to sit and have conversations with you and other members from the law enforcement agency and see the action and plan. You're there all the time, and that doesn't mean because you're there because there's a threat. You're there because they want you there. It's part of their plan. It's part of their strategy. So there's behind the scenes, we don't hear about it, but you're there. And I just, for parents who are like, today is not an easy day. I'm a parent. Today is not an easy day to send my kid out to school, and it's not because of school. It's just
Yeah.
I just how do you look at that? And I think the reassurance knowing that you guys are part of the school, you're part of the plan, you're doing what you can to help every single day. That could be from saying hi to students to you're sitting at the meetings with district officials and working through that.
Yeah, the key to an effective response, which I think is what we saw yesterday, is having those relationships and partnerships ahead of time, and that's something we value. It takes time, and it takes time from other duties, but it's critically important for us for a number of reasons, whether it's an emergency like this or dealing with a traffic concern. But nearly throughout the year, even though school's not in session, we're constantly engaging with our partners at all of our schools, talking about emergency response plans, talking about other concerns they have, establishing relationships with students. But we are so fortunate. I can't tell you how proud I am of all of the schools that we serve in our community, how forward-thinking they have been, reacting, learning from previous tragedies. And I think the biggest tragedy following a tragedy is if lessons aren't learned, right? And so I think as time passes, we learn more and more about each one of these incidents, and I expect to learn more about this incident, what went well, what could be improved, and to apply those lessons here in our community with our schools.
So the preparation's great. Parents might be asking themselves, I know I was last night, like, what can I do? What can I do to prepare my children, prepare myself, and find the right resources to get out there? We've shared a lot of resources on this show from interviews they've done here, but where would you start for finding resources for folks to learn more about talking to kids and having these conversations?
Yeah, I think I just want to acknowledge, as you kind of mentioned here too, but as a parent myself, I think the one thing that we see now is the fear and the anxiety of parents responding to these schools to pick up their children, not knowing information, and just that complete unknown factor, right? And so I think that's one of the things that we always have to keep in mind as responders, that these parents are concerned about their number one priority, their children. And so I think that often is tied with a feeling of frustration, like, what can I do as a parent? I trust the school with my child's safety and depend on others to take care of my child during the day. And so I think the biggest piece of advice that I can give to any parent is to be engaged ahead of time. We can't wait until there's an emergency or until there's an issue. And that comes in a lot of forms, but realistically being very engaged with your child and their activities at school, what's going on in their day-to-day lives. I know kids hate being asked the question, how was your day? But knowing friend groups, knowing challenges that are going on there. I can't imagine what it would be like to be a child today with social media, just the digital lives that kids lead, and some of the other concerns that we hear on a daily basis. But there fortunately are a growing number of resources and recognition that this is a challenge. And so I think being engaged with the school, for starters here, understanding what emergency procedures are. And I know in an emergency you may not necessarily go back and consult that student handbook, but having a general idea how these situations may play out, even if it's a drill, knowing what that looks like, talking with your student or child ahead of time, this is how these things happen, this is why this happens, having some plans in place. But then there are a number of resources, and I think the easiest one to direct people to, for a number of reasons. One, because I think it's an underknown resource out there, is Speak Up, Speak Out Wisconsin, and that's put out by the Wisconsin Department of Justice Office of School Safety. And again, that's Speak Up, Speak Out Wisconsin. And there are a number of resources on there. It was primarily intended as an outlet for tips for people to report threats. I always encourage families to speak directly with the school, but sometimes people don't feel comfortable with that. But also on that website, there are a ton of resources for parents to speak with their students about acts of violence that have occurred in other situations like yesterday, or about bullying, whatever the concern may be, that are things that are kind of central themes to this issue and really tragic issue of violence occurring in schools.
Yeah, it's a great one, and that's speakup.widoj.gov if you're interested in looking that up. And then just finally, if somebody does have a concern, if somebody's worried, great resource here, but if they want to talk to an officer, or they're again just kind of concerned, where do I start? Or I don't know if this is legit and not legit, what would you recommend?
We're available to answer any question any time of day, and we would rather answer that question and have it be nothing, or answer that concern and have it be nothing, than find out a couple days after an incident that I had concerns but I didn't know who to reach out to. And so If we're not necessarily the person that they want to or need to speak to, we can certainly direct them there. And in times like this, it's important for us is to remember that we are a community, and that we're all responsible for each other, and that creating a safe environment for our schools is really incumbent upon all of us. Even people that don't have a direct connection to the school, but certainly people that are working there, parents, students, everyone's responsible. And that's what I tell the schools that I work with, is that it's creating a culture of safety, understanding that very simple things can have trickle-down effects on a safe school environment. And I want to take a moment to come in from a family of educators, and knowing a number of people that work in the schools. It's a very challenging environment to work in, not only to be responsible for a child's education, but now we're asking teachers and school staff to be responsible for their safety. And in this instance, horrible tragedy, any loss of life. But I know that there are teachers out there that are extra concerned about their safety. And so I just want to reassure those teachers that we do actively work, to make sure that there are plans in place and to provide training. And so I just want to share just an extra moment of appreciation for what they're going through today as they go into the classroom right before the holiday break.
Yeah, I mean, I can't thank enough. We don't pull the curtain back enough for a lot of reasons, but there's so many moving parts behind the scenes that are going into this. And while I hate bringing you in for talk tragedy, I also appreciate your time to shed light on, what is happening behind the scenes. And again, if we have to do this interview 100 times to continue to shed light, share information, I will do it every single day. So I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and appreciate all the everybody involved, and for every day that you continue to be out there and do these things. It's amazing, and I know we all appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Jimmy.
Thank you.